Hi, my name is Levi, and I'm building a crystal portal. This is the Crystal Portal Podcast. We talk about crystals, moldavite, spirit guides, sacred geometry, intuition, quantum energy, and all things metaphysical. Find something special for your spiritual journey. Shop online at moldavitejewelry.com to support my work. Welcome to episode 3 of the podcast. So real quick before we begin, if you remember back in episode 1, I'd recently found moldavite and I was on a journey to know thyself, so living off grid, and at night I would deliver pizzas. So I had plenty of time on the road that I utilized to learn about anything and everything spiritual. And so I spent many hours learning about how to connect with spirit guides, learning about chakras, portals, anything and everything that was down the rabbit hole of spirituality. I was all about it. It was a lot of fun, a lot of learning, and it was the very beginning of my moldavite experience. Another aspect of this was I saw an astrologer who was also psychic. I'd never really been to anyone at the time in this realm, so for me, living a quote-unquote normal life, going to see an astrologer was quite a step for me at the time. And one thing that the astrologer said was that I had a lot of guides that were there to help and work with me. However, they couldn't do anything unless I quote-unquote orchestrated, meaning I had to be able to connect. So it was a little frustrating because I would meditate, but again, I was not able to connect or tune in very much at the time. Fast forward several years, if you recall, I talked about this pendant that I created. Now it has, for those of you listening, not able to see this, it's got phenakite, faceted phenakite at the top, Tatooine meteorite, it's a fragment of asteroid Vesta, Check 002 meteorite, very interesting energy, piece of moon, Mars, and a meteorite called Allende, which is 16 billion years old. Some very ancient energy. Also have some blue tourmaline, benitoite and matrix with naturalite, some serious third eye energy there. And in the back we've got brookite, 2 phenakite crystals, and up here at the top a faceted moldavite. So this is a lot of galactic, seriously high vibe energy. So I began meditating with the pendant, and for the very first time the messages were absolutely crystal clear, and that was a game changer for me, because for years I'd been trying to connect with spirit guides. This was the first major step forward that I had been able to achieve since I began my spiritual journey. This is also when I met my spirit guides. So one of the guides is a dragon guide. He's very powerful, ancient, very protective. And what I didn't recognize was early on, many years before, when I'd first began meditating, I would see this huge eye that would come into my visual awareness. Now, so for me, when I recognize that my third eye is open, I start seeing kind of a purple cloud. And so I would see this huge eye, just a single eye, come into my awareness. And then as I became aware of what this was and the scope of it, it would back off. And so what I learned was that, so our spirit guides are there to help us. They're here for our highest and greatest good. And they don't want to do anything that would frighten us. So my dragon guide was trying to introduce himself. However, when I would get a little freaked out because I'm seeing this huge eye, he would back away. So again, I've since learned that he's a very ancient energy and again, very protective. Another one of my guides is Archangel Metatron. So Metatron, he's got a very strong presence, also very powerful, very protective. I often see him over here on my left side. And when I begin my meditations, I will always call in Archangel Metatron and the Dragon Guide to clear the space and clear the energy, clear my energy body of any negative energies or entities. Interesting note about Metatron is sometimes when communicating with him, he's got this very deep, low tone. So it's like he's got a presence that you recognize. So it's been really interesting to learn about spirit guides because it's kind of like stepping into a Harry Potter movie. You know, they don't teach this stuff in school. Okay, how do you connect with your spirit guides? You got to figure it out. One thing about this pendant that I created, it assists with connecting to higher states of consciousness within. And it also connects with other worlds and other beings. One of the first times when I was working with the gold pendant, I asked who it was that I was communicating with. And I saw a star and I heard beings. So it's a collective of star beings. They're also my guides. As far as how I receive the messages, it's both clairaudient, meaning hearing, clairvoyance, third eye vision, inner vision, and sometimes rarely clairsentience, meaning feeling senses in the body. With clairaudience, I will often get an audio clip from a movie or a song or even a clip of a conversation that I had 10, 20, 30 years ago. It's almost like the spirit guides access memories as memory bank within the brain. Very similar with the visual aspect of it, because I'll sometimes see the clip of a movie or sometimes almost an etheric representation of whatever it is I'm asking about. Now, the star beings will often communicate multidimensionally. So that's, honestly, it's a little bit challenging for me at times because it's not always very cut and dry, straightforward. So, for example, a message I might receive is a clip from the Matrix, "There is no spoon." And that message might not necessarily be what's on the surface. It could be communicating the whole movie or the whole trilogy. So I will often ask for clarity. If I don't quite understand what it is that's being communicated, I'll ask, please elaborate in the last response, or please tell me in a way that I can understand this better. And so they'll often clarify some of these messages until I can actually understand what it is that's being communicated. You could say the crystal portal is galactically guided in a way, because when I began working on this project, I would often ask about the synergy of minerals, so advice on how the energies are working together, and also best placement. So, for example, all right, how does moldavite and phenakite, how does the synergy of the energy work together? And the fulgurite, pieces of fossilized lightning, they suggested to put a piece of Tatooine meteorite inside the bead itself. And so when I was asking about clarity as to why, or like what would the energy do, theoretically, what does the energy do if you've put the meteorite inside versus somewhere else, or just standalone, a separate bead? And so the visual that I got was of this energy that kind of spanned out. It was like this, almost a free-form energy. And that kind of makes sense, because if you think about fulgurite created from fossilized lightning, strikes the earth, and boom, you have instant fossilized glass, fossilized lightning. And so the structure is amorphous, which means the molecules line up in all different directions. There's no crystalline or lattice structure. So if the energy of the meteorite is in there, it makes a lot of sense that the energy would just be simply going out in all directions. Now, at times when I had asked about specific placement, I would sometimes see a three-dimensional representation of the portal itself. So, for example, you'd see like the selenite pillars, and then the base, and the bridge section. And so when I would ask specifically, okay, where's the best placement of this mineral, the phenakite, for example, and I would see like an animated line that went straight to a particular section or portions of the portal. And so it was really interesting, this journey of seeing theoretically, okay, ideal to go there or to go there. So this has been a very interesting journey of exploration and learning about the unseen. This is the ether energy. So if you notice these bracelets here, some of the tools that I create, I work with ether energy. And so that is an aspect of The crystal portal itself is sometimes working with the energy that is unseen. So again, going back to the example of what my guides were showing specific placement. So one time that I saw the portal itself, however, some of it was made and other parts of it were not made yet. So it was like there were some solid parts, but then the parts that were not made were a little grayed out. It was like they were there, but they were there in the ether. And surprisingly, there were also mineral energies that they suggested not to include. For example, I have Aries in my astrological chart, so I really resonate with the energy of Mars meteorites. It's very solar plexus focused, action oriented, get in there, get done, like fired up, just do it. And so when I thought about some of the mineral energies, Mars seemed like a great option for this, because this crystal portal requires a person to take action, to move forward, to walk through the portal themselves. And so when I asked about adding Mars meteorite to it, they said not to do that because people would be afraid of it. They said, yes, the energy would be positive. However, people are afraid of the unknown. Now, when asking my spirit guides about the mineral energies, the synergies of working together, and also placement, I always ask, what is the most optimal as well as for the highest and greatest good of all? Because ideally, this is a multi-dimensional, it's the most elaborate game of 5D chess that you can think of. It's mind-boggling. Early on, my guides made a suggestion that didn't make a lot of sense at the time. However, it evolved into something great. They said I should get a gong. Follow and subscribe to find out what happens next.